welcome to a Parker's Group test of 3 of the finest executive EVs on sale today. In the black corner we have the BMW i5 M60, in the blue corner it's the Tesla Model S Plaid, and in the grey corner it's the Mercedes-AMG EQE 53.
Now, all of these cars are designed to carry their occupants in comfort, style and refinement, and they're all absolutely packed with technology, and in the case of the ones that we've got here today, performance as well.
Absolutely, and to find out which one is best, we're going to do individual sections on performance, practicality, comfort, technology, and even value for money. And at the end of that, we're going to come up with a proper first, second, and third place verdict. No messing around.
Now, if you're feeling generous, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and turn your notifications on so you can keep up with what we're doing on the channel. And if you want to learn more about the cars, head over to parkers.co.uk where we've got detailed reviews on all of them. But right, now let's get on with the video.
Let's do it.
We'll start with what the cars are like to drive, and more specifically, the self-proclaimed ultimate driving machine. The BMW i5 is the newest car on this test, and it has a lot to live up to, given it's the first all-electric equivalent of BMW's famous 5 Series model line. You see thousands of the petrol and diesel versions on the road, so should the i5 prove as popular?
Well, in a word, yes. There's been a lot of controversy recently about BMW styling, but I'll let you make your own minds up about that because, you can see the car. But what I can tell you is that the driving experience of this car is very, very good indeed, especially the powertrain.
You can get the i5 with a single motor delivering 340 horsepower to the rear wheels only. That's badged the eDrive 40. But what we've got here is the dual motor 601 horsepower M60 version with all-wheel drive.
Despite weighing in at 2.4 tons, it is very quick off the line. 0 to 62 miles an hour is 3.8 seconds, which is awfully fast, but it's actually the slowest car to 62 on this test, although the straight line speed definitely is not to be sniffed at. However, once you get into a corner, that's where the i5 really stands out. The i5 handles its weight really well. The steering is nice and precise and well weighted, and it helps make the car feel agile when you reach corners, which is pretty impressive considering just how big it actually is. And that's no doubt helped by the standard fit on the M60 version rear wheel steering. You can also get optional active anti-roll bars, but then I don't think they're strictly necessary for the driving experience, even if they perhaps are nice to have. Interestingly though, if you want the sweetest handling i5, then I reckon it's not the performance version, the M60 that you want, because the eDrive 40 is a bit better. It's lighter, it's rear wheel drive, so it's just got a bit more sense of fun to it. It feels a bit lighter on its toes. And as we know, BMW are very good at making rear-wheel drive saloon cars. They've got a great pedigree in that.
The i5's ride comfort is on the firmer side, especially with the 21-inch wheels, but it feels well controlled and consistent. It's also super quiet at a cruise and even lets you drive along a motorway with no hands on the wheel, provided you've got the adaptive cruise control with highway assistant activated and the local traffic laws allow.
Our main criticism of the driving experience though is, it's just how big this thing is. And that might seem unfair, but it's 3 centimeters wider and 10 centimeters longer than the previous 5 Series, and that wasn't a small car. And it means that when you're trying to thread it through the city or on narrow country roads, it's a big old bus. Doesn't feel it when you're going quick, but then going through gaps, it does. Takes some getting used to, that's for sure.
BMW i5 done, it's time to check out what the Mercedes-AMG EQE 53 has to offer. The all-electric equivalent to the hugely popular Mercedes-Benz E-Class, it also has a lot to live up to and aims to major on technology and comfort. Let's see if that rings true.
First things first, I just want to highlight one thing that may seem obvious, but also might seem a bit confusing, is this is obviously the EQE, but it's not to be confused with the EQE SUV, which has obviously got a very similar name. So this is the EQE Saloon. Just wanted to get that out of the way. And compared with the BMW, first impressions indicate that there's one big similarity and also one very clear difference. The similarity is that this thing feels huge. I think we're seeing a common theme in this test, but even with the optional rear wheel steering, it's a big old thing, although that does help the turning circle a lot. The big difference though is how it deals with its weight. This is about 2.6 tons, very heavy, and it doesn't deal with it as convincingly as the BMW. In this, the steering isn't as polished, it isn't as direct, doesn't feel as confidence-inspiring. In the BMW, it's just really nice and quite natural, actually, all things considered. And also the control going through corners. The BMW is good fun. I wouldn't say this is fun. It's very solid, safe, but I don't think you're going to have a good time driving it. Also, the ride comfort. In this, it's very softly sprung, and that can be good in certain situations, but in others not so much. So when you've got a really smooth piece of road, feels the business. But then it can get a bit wallowy, which can make you feel a bit sick. And also going over some bumps feels like it's been caught out a bit. I mean, let's go over here. Yeah, big bang. I don't know if you heard that, but the refinement really suffers and you really feel it judder into the cabin. The BMW is more firmly sprung, but it's also better controlled. Now, even with the air suspension, I don't think this is as relaxing an experience as you get in the i5. And something else that I've noticed that isn't so much not relaxing, but it is a bit strange, is the brake pedal. There's quite a lot of travel before it does anything. It's a really weird feel. I don't know if it's just this particular model or this particular car, but it takes some getting used to.
The EQE 53 is, however, very fast and quicker than the BMW to 62. It's the same twin motor setup as the BMW, with one on the front axle and one on the rear, but power is up to 625 horsepower or 686 horsepower with the Dynamic Plus package spec. And that does make an appreciable difference when you put your foot down. However, when it comes to outright speed, then the Model S Plaid is something else entirely, as you're about to see. Add in the fact that it gives owners access to the best charging network in the country, and you can see why it's still a hugely compelling choice. That said, it's not perfect.
Now, it's been a good few years since Tesla burst onto the scene with the Model S, so they've had plenty of time to get it right, and there are plenty of really impressive things about how this car drives. For starters, the speed of this Plaid version. All the cars on this test are quick, but this thing is in another league. Let's just put it in the correct mode. There we go, and oh wow. Honestly, incredible. Over 1,000 brake horsepower, 0 to 62 miles an hour in 2 seconds. It's astonishing. I mean, it does 0 to 100 miles an hour in about 4.5 seconds. Doesn't matter what you come up against, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Maseratis, doesn't matter. This thing on the road, it will accelerate faster. And that's a scary thought. But it's not just about the sheer speed, because the powertrain is very, very good across the board. It's super smooth, it's really easy to modulate, and even when you just want a little burst of speed, it's excellent as well. This has got to be one of the finest EV powertrains that you can buy today for any money.
It's not just the speed that's impressive either. At a cruise, the Model S is very quiet and refined, and if you start to throw it around a little bit, there's plenty of grip and incredible outright traction from the all-wheel drive system. What's more, the ride is nicely judged and refinement is also impressive. Also, full access to the Tesla charging network is worth its weight in gold, not just because of the speed of the chargers, but also how well placed they are throughout the country.
However, there are some very significant issues with this car that you simply cannot ignore. The first is the fact that it's left-hand drive only, which again, it's not an issue in America or a lot of other markets, but over here in the United Kingdom where we're doing this test, that's a big problem. And it's one that doesn't affect any of its rivals. You can of course get the Mercedes and the BMW in right-hand drive. Also, the indicators are ridiculous, if I'm being honest. They're on the steering wheel, they're haptic feedback buttons, and it just does not work as well as a traditional stalk. There's an over-reliance on the touchscreen, so that key safety features such as the fog lights are in touchscreen menus, so that's not great. And I've also noticed that on the motorway, the steering is way too sensitive. It's fine when you're going quickly through corners, but if you're going at 70 miles an hour and you just want to have a nice relaxed steering, yeah, it's too fidgety. You've got to make too many corrections.
It's a shame, as the Model S has done many of the difficult things very well indeed, but then, for whatever reason, it's been let down by what should be straightforward elements. The indicators and left-hand drive part being two prime examples.
I do understand why Tesla tries to do things differently to other car makers, because that's how they made their name, and in a lot of ways, they've done that very well. But it does feel that with this car and with some of the features such as the indicators and such as the way that they've not bothered to make it as a right-hand drive model, they're taking things a bit far. And it's a shame because it is not spoiling, but it's seriously impacting what is actually in some ways and in many ways a very good car. Luckily though, the driving experience is helped hugely by that fabulous powertrain. It really is amazing. And also, we can't forget the charging network. We're going to speak about charging in a minute, but Tesla's supercharger network is phenomenal. So those are two huge plus points. It's just a shame that they are offset against some kind of silly details that do make a big difference.
Before we move on to the interior section, we're just going to do a quick run through of the respective range and charging of each vehicle on test, because let's face it, that sort of thing is very important. So, the BMW we've got claims up to 320 miles of range from its 81.2 kilowatt-hour battery. The Mercedes is up to 290 miles of range from its 90.6 kilowatt-hour battery, and the Tesla is 373 miles from what we believe is around a 95 kilowatt-hour battery. Thus meaning the Tesla has the best claimed range, and we can confirm that we've seen it reading over 340 miles in the real world. Charging speeds for each car vary, but the bottom line is that a 20 to 80% charge at a powerful rapid charger is dispatched in around 30 minutes, realistically, for each car. Right, now to hand over to Luke, who's going to take a look at each car's interior, starting with the Mercedes.
So the Mercedes EQE's interior does some things well and other things not so well. We'll start with good, namely the sheer amount of technology in here. I mean, it's like a branch of curries. You opt for Mercedes' optional hyperscreen infotainment system and you get a screen in front of the driver, a screen in the middle of the dashboard for your media and nav functions, and then another screen on the passenger side of the dash that lets whoever's sitting there watch films as you drive along. I mean, it's all deeply impressive stuff, but I think it's bordering on excessive.
This tech doesn't come cheap either. At the time of recording, Merc's Hyperscreen was a £6,990 optional extra on the EQE. But if you're a proper technophile, you might be able to justify the spend. It nets you a whopping 55 inches worth of screen, an augmented reality head-up display and a fingerprint scanner that automatically loads your preferences for the car when you touch it. Clever.
The EQE's interior is great overall, but it's not perfect. I mean, there are a few squeaks in the dashboard, and the buttons that you regularly interact with, such as those on the center console and those on the steering wheel, are a little bit flimsy, which, if you're anything like me, is going to annoy you no end. It's especially naff when you consider this particular AMG EQE cost £114,000. I mean, in my book, it's just not worth it. The Tesla Model S is 10 years old now, which is positively ancient in new car terms. I mean, most car manufacturers replace their cars when they hit 7, So the fact that Tesla's kept this around for so long is testament to its popularity. However, and I can't believe I'm saying this in a car that has what's basically a TV screen on its dashboard, it looks quite dated when you compare it to the i5 and the EQE.
In a way, that's strange because the Tesla Model S is arguably the car that sparked the current trend for manufacturers to design their interiors around their infotainment systems. It's only in the past couple of years that BMW and Mercedes have started to ditch physical climate control panels, but everything on the Tesla has been controlled by the central screen ever since it was first launched in 2012.
This is either going to delight or frustrate you depending on the sort of person that you are. It really annoys me, but thankfully Tesla's infotainment system is good enough to soften the blow. It's a lot like an iPad. I mean, the menus are quite similar, the icons are the same, and that means it's really familiar, which means it's not intimidating to use when you're on the road.
There's an elephant to address, however: build quality. This has long been Tesla's Achilles heel, but what's particularly strange is that it differs from car to car.
We've tested a few Model S's now, and their interiors have ranged from perfectly passable to downright offensive. This is one of the better ones, but even so, the quality can't match that of its German rivals. I mean, it's just made from cheaper materials. And I mean, listen to this. It's just rubbish. And we'll end with what I think's the best car here, the i5. When you step into it, the first thing that strikes you is the build quality. I mean, it's very much like a miniature i7, and it makes the EQE and the Tesla Model S feel a bit shonky in comparison. I mean, there's not a single creaky trim or wiggly switch in sight. It's been assembled beautifully.
The dashboard has two displays. There's a 12.3-inch digital gauge panel and a 14.9-inch infotainment system, both mounted on one enormous piece of curved glass. Both screens are incredibly high definition, and most importantly, they're good at withstanding bright sunlight.
The driver display is a bit chaotic, but the graphics are really sharp and it's very configurable. So you can put your nav on there, you can have your safety kit on there, or you can have like a twin dial aping setup like you get in a normal car, which is probably the screen I'd stick with if it was mine.
I'm a little less keen on the i5's infotainment screen, simply because BMW has piled every single one of the car's interior functions onto it. Climate controls, driver assistance tech, drive modes, the lot. Even the air vents are open and closed with touch-sensitive sliders, which just feels like tech for the sake of tech to me. But this is a problem that's shared by all three cars.
Happily, BMW made the icons on the screen quite big, which means it's easier to hit them when you're bouncing down a bumpy B road. And if you don't want to use the touchscreen at all, you don't have to, because you can control the entire screen from this dial here, which is just great. It means you don't need to spend as much time staring at the screen when you're driving, which is just way safer.
So, the BMW gets the award for Best Interior Experience for those in the front. But what about those in the back?
Back here in the Tesla, it's an absolute sea of white and black. It's like sitting on a piano, and I almost feel like I blend in a little bit. But there's some really good features here. So for example, we've got a very large screen where you can control the climate, and you can also watch things like Netflix on there, which is a nice touch. A couple of USB-C ports as well. The big panoramic roof, that's fantastic for light in the back. Bit disappointing that there's no pocket on the back of the seat, and I reckon the foot room underneath the seat is a bit pinched. But overall space, loads of knee room, headroom is pretty good as well, good elbow room, and if you're sitting in the middle, there's no big lumps, so you haven't got any kind of impinged foot space. So it's actually really good back here. I'm impressed. Sitting in the back of the BMW, and I don't think it's quite as spacious as the Tesla, and that could be because the panoramic roof isn't as long in a BMW. It's still a very good size, but the Tesla's comes further back, so that might make it feel a bit less airy. But in general, I think there's a bit less elbow room. Knee room is pretty good. There's actually a bit more room to slide your feet underneath the seat. But just overall, there is a bigger sense of airiness in the Tesla than the BMW. I've also noticed that there's more USB-C points, and the climate screen is a lot more basic, but it does the job very well. But the most crucial thing is that there is a big central tunnel, and that's because this car shares its platform with the petrol and diesel 5 Series, so it still needs that big tunnel there, and that's a big problem if you're sitting in the middle, so that's where the Tesla has a big advantage. Otherwise, I think it's fairly close. But yeah, the Tesla's definitely superior to the i5 in terms of rear seat practicality. So in the back of the Mercedes-AMG, and there's some good points and some bad points compared with the other cars. Now, for starters, you can probably see it's very dark in here. It's quite gloomy, and also the windows, they feel quite small, so that could be a bit of a problem. Knee room and leg room, though, is very, very good. I have got tons and tons of room here, and headroom, well, it's fine if I sit a little bit tilted to the right, but then if I'm anywhere to the left or even in the center, actually, I can feel that headlining impinging there. And you've got the panoramic roof, which is nice, but it's definitely affecting the headroom, so that could be better. The climate control display and controls is similar to the BMW, but it's nowhere near as high quality to look at or touch. That feels a bit cheap and flimsy. You've got 2 USB-C points hidden beneath that folds down. And then there's almost no central tunnel, but it's not quite as good as the Tesla because there is a little bit of a lifted area there, but it's a lot better if you're sitting in the middle than it is in the BMW.
As for the boot space, the Tesla Model S has a distinct advantage over its rivals. See, whereas the BMW and Mercedes-Benz don't have any additional luggage room under the bonnet, the Tesla has an extra 89 litres. Add that to the 709 litres of boot space with all 5 seats in place, and it dwarfs the BMW's 490 and the Merc's 430 litre boot. Therefore, when it comes to practicality, it's a clear win for the Tesla. But before we make our final verdict on which car wins overall, please allow Luke to take you through the finance details for each car.
Prices for the BMW i5 start from around £74,000. For that, you get the most basic eDrive 40 model, which has an 81.2 kilowatt-hour battery pack, a single electric motor on the rear axle with 340 horsepower, and a maximum range of 357 miles, which isn't bad at all. The most basic trim you can get on the electric 5 Series is BMW's slightly racy M Sport spec, which has 19-inch alloy wheels, LED headlights, heated front seats, and slightly lowered sport suspension. If you step up to the M60 model, like this one is here, and it's basically the electric equivalent of the M5, you'll be paying about £100,000, which is an awful lot of money for a 5 Series, but still, it has 600 horsepower, 2 electric motors, 20-inch alloy wheels, a slightly racier body kit, and a posh Bowers & Wilkins stereo system, which works really well. The Mercedes EQE is a little bit cheaper than the i5. Prices start from around £68,000 for the EQE 300 Sport Edition model. That one has an 89 kilowatt-hour battery pack and a maximum range of almost 380 miles, but its electric motor is a lot less powerful. It's only got 245 horsepower, so it's not as quick. But equipment levels are comparable between the two cars. So the EQE comes with 19-inch alloys, LED headlights, synthetic leather upholstery, and heated seats. If you want this one though, which is the AMG EQE 53 model, that'll set you back almost £115,000. Naturally, because it's an AMG, you get much quicker 625 horsepower powertrain and loads of extra equipment, such as LED headlights, 21-inch alloy wheels, air suspension, and rear wheel steering. The Tesla's a little bit trickier because it's already on the back foot in this company because you can't have it in right-hand drive. Tesla only makes the S and the X now in left-hand drive for the UK market, which is a distinct disadvantage. It gets worse when you consider the price. So the most basic dual motor model starts from around £80,000, which is a lot when you compare it to the i5 and the EQE. And it gets worse if you want to get this one, which is the Model S Plaid. This one starts at around £100,000, which is, again, an awful lot of money. It makes up for it slightly by having so much power. I mean, it's got 1,020 horsepower, so it's easily the fastest car here. But it's also the oldest. I mean, this first went on sale more than a decade ago. So you need to pick what you want. Do you want speed or do you want the latest tech?
So, 3 very capable electric cars with 3 very large price tags. None of them are perfect, but we can agree on a winner. The EQE comes third in this test, largely because the drive lets it down against the Tesla and BMW, and it doesn't convincingly outperform either in any other category. The Tesla, meanwhile, has a brilliant powertrain, practicality and charging network, yet there's elements of the ergonomics and therefore the drive that we simply cannot forgive. Therefore, the BMW narrowly takes the win. It's good across the board and it does have the best cabin. Mind you, if it was us, we'd be picking the cheaper eDrive 40 version over the more powerful M60. Do you agree with our verdict? Let us know in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this comparison, please make sure you subscribe to the Parker's channel and turn your notifications on so that you never miss another video.